Well, hello there. This is Kim Wells. I am the VOTE411 coordinator for the League of Women Voters of Delaware this year in 2020. And this video is an overview of voting in Delaware this year. It's been a challenging year in a lot of ways. One of the concerns people have had, amongst many other more serious concerns, is how are we going to vote safely in 2020? I thought I could give this to you in 2 minutes in my pajamas, but I did a couple dry runs. It turns out it takes a lot longer than 2 minutes. So I'll start with this little overview, tell you what we're going to cover in this video, and then you can decide how long you want to stay in there. So first we'll talk about elections in Delaware in 2020. Since it's a presidential election year, we have 4 statewide elections. The presidential primaries, the school board elections, the state primaries, and the general election. We'll talk about what each of those are and when they are. Then we will talk about what's changed due to the state of emergency that Governor Carney has issued for the coronavirus pandemic. The first 2 elections were delayed. They're now going to be in July. We have new registration deadlines going along with those election delays. And most importantly, all Delaware voters can vote absentee in those first 2 elections in July. Normally, absentee ballots are restricted to very specific reasons, like being sick, like being away from home, being stationed overseas. This year, all of us can vote absentee for the presidential primary on July 7 and for the school board election on July 21. We will talk about when and how to get your absentee ballots. The short story there is you can walk through a wizard on ivote.de.gov. You can have that ballot sent to you by email, sent to you by postal mail, and return it either electronically or again by postal mail. You can download and print out a form and fill it out and send it in. Or you can fill out that same form online, sign it electronically, and send it in by email. School board elections have a separate application form than the presidential primary application form. We're going to go through all of that. If you just want to know how to walk through the ivote.de.gov absentee ballot request wizard, we're going to have a separate video that just covers that. So if that's your main point, you want to get to the meat of it, look for that other video on our YouTube channel. Then we will talk a little bit about VOTE411.org. There have been a lot of changes already this year. It's been kind of a whirlwind. So how are you going to know if it changes again? You know, maybe they're going to decide to delay the elections again. Maybe they're going to change the absentee procedure again. So all those latest changes you can keep up with on VOTE411.org. The League of Women Voters of the U.S. has done a really good job of keeping up with the latest information for all 50 states on that website. VOTE411.org, we like to call it a one-stop shop for election information. And then finally, we are going to talk about why you should vote in the July presidential primary and school board elections. Short story there, if you don't want to watch the whole video, is one of the positive outcomes that might happen out of the whole pandemic is that states across the U.S., including Delaware, might expand their remote voting options for the voting public. They might do more vote by mail. They might do expanded absentee, no excuse absentee. We've been given this opportunity to vote remotely, to use vote by mail, and we should show the government of Delaware that yes, this is a valuable service. When we're given this opportunity, we will use it. It will increase turnout. People like the option, and it can work in Delaware. So that's one of the reasons you might not have thought of to go ahead and vote in these first 2 elections in July and vote by absentee. All right, so let's get started. 4 elections in a presidential primary year are the presidential primary for Delaware is usually in April. It was originally scheduled for April 28th this year. The presidential primary is for the major two parties, for the Democratic and the Republican parties to choose their candidate for the general election presidential candidate. In order to vote in the presidential primary, you have to be registered in one of the two major parties, the Democratic or the Republican Party. We have the school board elections. School board elections are every year. They're always the second Tuesday in May. They were originally scheduled for May 12 this year. School boards, everybody can vote in the school board election. A lot of people think you have to be a parent, you have to have a kid in the school. No, if you live in a school district in Delaware, which is everyone, and you're a citizen of the US and you're a voting age, you can vote in the school board election. On September 15, we have the statewide primaries. Again, these are for the two major parties to pick their candidates for each race in the general election. So to vote in the state primaries, you have to be registered as a Republican or a Democrat. And then on November 3, we have the general election. And this is, of course, the big election day that we share with all of the other states. We all do it on the first Tuesday in November. This year, very important, we're choosing the President of the United States. We're choosing the Governor of Delaware, the Lieutenant Governor of Delaware. We're selecting, as in every election year, half of our state senators. We're selecting all of our state representatives. We're selecting our representative to the US Congress. We are selecting one of our two senators at the national level. And we have local races, we have city council races, we have all sorts of things coming up in this general election. Most people think about the presidential race only, but think about your local elections, think about your local officials. They actually affect your life more directly than some of the big national figures do. All right. So we originally were going to be April, May, September, November. So what happened to change that? In March, I think it was, not March, yeah, March 12th, Governor Carney issued an state of emergency for Delaware because of the COVID-19 outbreak. And it became effective on March 13. And all along, he's been issuing updates as strategies change, as new information develops. One of those updates in late March delayed the first two elections, the March and the presidential primary in April and the school board election may delay them until June. And that declaration also said that all Delawareans can vote by absentee ballot in those two elections. Since Delaware absentee reasons are limited in our Constitution, he said, Governor Carney declared that the qualification of sick or physically disabled, as it says right here, will be valid to use for reasons of social isolation or quarantine during the COVID crisis. Even if you're asymptomatic, even if you're not sick, you're supposed to put I am sick on your absentee ballot request, or I am disabled, even if you're not actually physically disabled. So we're just kind of expanding the meaning of those existing reason codes. Then in late May, I think this was the 15th modification to the emergency declaration. In late May, Governor Carney delayed the elections again from June until July. And he stated that for the presidential primary, the Department of Elections will send out absentee ballot request forms to all eligible voters in the presidential primary election. So if we go back to this for just a minute, the new date for the presidential primary is July 7. And absentee ballot request forms will be sent out to people who are eligible to vote in the presidential primary on July 7. The new date for the Delaware school board elections is July 21st. You can vote absentee in that election, but you're going to have to request your absentee ballot yourself. Those at this point are not being sent out to the eligible voters. All right, what else? Okay, so along with the election date changes, the registration dates have also changed. I'm going to pop over here to the election calendar. if you just Google on election calendar Delaware, you'll find this. This is Delaware's election calendar official from the Department of Elections. This calendar is very detailed. It has all the dates associated with elections, including when the candidates need to file. But the ones that you are going to care about here are registration deadlines. So you can see here the new deadline for the presidential primary to register is June 13 of 2020. And there's a separate deadline. So June 13 is the deadline for new voters to register. In Delaware, there's one deadline to register if you've not been registered before. In the primary elections, there's a separate deadline to change parties. If you were registered independent or you were registered in a different party and you want to switch for an election, you have to do that earlier. So the deadline to change your parties for the July 7th presidential primary was May 8th. So it's already passed. You should know the school board election has no registration deadline. In the state of Delaware, you do not need to be registered to vote in order to vote in the school board elections. You need only be a resident, a citizen residing in the school district that's having the election and be of voting age in order to vote. So registration deadline doesn't apply for the July 21 school board election. Oh, I just want to give a shout out. So another place you can find out the deadlines and such, election information, is on our own website. This is the League of Women Voters of Newcastle County. Each of the leagues in Delaware, and we have 4 of them, has their own website. On our Newcastle County one, under information for Delaware voters, I just clicked there. You have a page about registering to vote. On there, you're going to find registration deadlines. There's a page about learning about candidates and issues. There's a page about voting in Delaware elections, and this is going to show the latest election dates as well. So that's another source of information. All right, so as we mentioned, it's been a moving target this year. It's changed several times as far as the election dates, as far as the absentee procedures. So how are you going to know if it changes again? Well, you can keep up with the Department of Elections, you can keep up with our league website, but we've been telling everybody that VOTE411 is a one-stop shop for election information, so let's see if that's true. I've just opened up a fresh browser window. I'm going to put in vote411.org, press enter, and here is the VOTE411 homepage. You can see that there are links here for a lot of different operations. You can register to vote or get to the voter registration page, check your status, find out what's on your ballot. Those are all good features. Before each election, I use this one, find what's on your ballot, so I can know what candidates are running, what races are on my ballot, and who's running and what their viewpoints are. You can get to that through putting in your home address. But for right now, we just want to find out what are the absentee rules in Delaware. So I clicked Delaware on the map, and boom, we popped up here with Delaware election changes. So we've got a notice here. It says the presidential primary has been moved to July 7th. School board elections have been moved to July 21st. You can apply for an absentee ballot online today. It's also talking about the mailing. The absentee ballot will be mailed out for the presidential primary. So we've pretty much nailed it. That's all the correct information that we've been talking about. Is in here in Spanish as well. It's very nice. We've got more details here if you want more details about Delaware absentee. Again, we've got alert at the top, which is saying you sick or physically disabled, and then it's got more information. This is the every year information that they've got on VOTE411 about absentee ballots. One of the things to notice here is absentee ballots for school board elections have a separate application process. So it's good to be aware of that. All right, but let's go back to this very home page. Let's click on apply for an absentee ballot. So what this does is VOTE411 has sent us to the state of Delaware's page. VOTE411 does that a lot. It sends you to the local state's election resources, as it should, because that's where the prime font of information is. But if you start at VOTE411, you don't have to remember all the other pages. That's why we call it the one-stop shop. So your guide to voting by absentee ballot. There's this quick reference guide. I just want to show that to you real quick. I opened it in a new tab here. This is a nice graphic put out by the Department of Elections. You may have seen it on social media. Just kind of a quick step-by-step, here's how you're going to get your absentee ballot for the presidential primary election. This was put out before the governor's order that absentee applications be sent to folks. So it's talking about ordering it online or ordering it on a paper ballot. And this again is available in Spanish as well. Here on this page, these links here would give you more detailed information specific for your situation. College students, military, overseas voters have a little different information they need than the rest of us. Here we've got the special information for school board elections. We're going to come back to that in a minute. But what you're really looking for your absentee request is right here at the bottom, the application forms. It's giving you two options. The first option here is to visit ivote.de.gov. And we're going to have a separate video that walks you through that, but I'll just open it up real quick. Open it in a new tab. Basically on ivote.de.gov, no matter what you're going to do, first you have to look up your registration form so it knows what districts you're in and what information to show you. So you would put in your name and your birth date, and you'd look up your voter registration, and then it can show you your polling place. It can show you your current registration status. It can allow you to change your party, change your address, change your name if you got married. All those things are available here on ivote.de.gov. And one of the options is is to request an absentee ballot. But as I said, there's a separate video walking through that interface, so I'm not going to do that now. Option 2 they're giving you is to download and complete the absentee ballot request form. So we'll open up that real quick. The request form looks like this. You would fill it in, fill in your information. You can see the little blue here. That means this can be filled out on your computer. When you download this, you can type into these fields, and you can sign it electronically and return it electronically, or you can print it out and fill it out on paper and mail it in if you prefer. For reasons of COVID, you're going to choose this reason code right here. I am sick, temporarily or permanently disabled. You can have the ballot sent to you by postal mail, by email, or by fax if you happen to have a fax machine. You'll notice here that the elections that are presented do not include the school board elections. No school elections are here. So for reasons of COVID, presidential primary is the one that you will select. Later on, if the state of emergency remains in effect long-term, you may be doing it for the state primary in September, the general election in November, but for right now, presidential primary is your election you'll be requesting for. All right, and then of course there's actually a third option now. Option 3, not listed, would be just to sit back and wait for the ballot to come to you in the postal mail. Our latest information is that will be happening the third week of May. So starting Monday, May 18, Tuesday, May 19, look for postal mail ballot from the Department of Elections. And it won't be a ballot, it will be the same ballot application form that I just showed you right here. But if you prefer to do it online, if you don't want to touch the paper, you can do the electronic. Even though they've sent you the request form in the mail, you can do the electronic versions with one of these two options. Another thing to be aware of, on the same mailing that they send you that has the absentee request form for the presidential primary, there'll also be a list of which polling places will remain open. Because there will be expanded use of absentee ballot in the July elections in July 2020, they're going to have fewer physical polling places that you can go to. So your own normal polling place may or may not be open. Look for that list in the mailing that comes to you for the presidential primary. All right, what else? Yes, so if you're using the wizard on ivote.de.gov, the one that we have the separate video on, you may or you may not see your school board election as a choice on there. The Department of Elections has been working to consolidate and to provide that option. It's kind of hit or miss right now. Sometimes it shows up, sometimes it doesn't, depends on where they are in their testing process. If you didn't see the school board election as an option when you filled out the wizard, or if you use this form instead, you're going to have to request your school board absentee ballot separately if your district has an election. So, and 10 out of the 16 public school districts in Delaware do have an election in 2020. Every school board has open seats every year in Delaware, but if it's not contested, they don't actually hold an election. So 10 of the districts have contested races and will have an election this year. So let's find out more about the school board absentee request. I'm going to click here on all voters under public school elections. So we have a page here that's all about absentee voting in the school elections. Again, they have a nice little quick reference graphic. Good one to know about and to share online. A little bit different. This one's specific to the school election, so it's a little different than the other. Because school absentees can only be sent to you in the postal mail. They don't have the send it to me by email option, and they don't have the ivote.de.gov wizard at this point. So we've got instructions here. There's even a video. If you choose to fill out the application form online, you're going to need to sign it electronically, and you're going to need to attach it to an email to send it back in potentially. So this video put together by the Department of Election is walking through those kind of more complicated or confusing aspects of submitting it electronically. As before, you always have the option of printing it out and signing it on paper and sending it in, or scanning it in and emailing it. But when you scroll down to the bottom here, you can see which districts do have elections this year. So here in Newcastle County, for example, 4 of the 5 districts do. Colonial does not. No contest in Colonial, as it says here. You will notice also that if your school district has a referendum election, that is a separate form to fill out. So if you live in Christina School District, you're going to want to fill out one absentee request for the school board election in July, on July 21st. You're going to want to fill out a separate absentee request, and do it pretty soon, for the school board referendum on June 9. So let's go ahead and open one of these up. This one is for Appoquinimink School District, and you can see they've filled in the school district and the election date for you. You would put in your address and your identifying information here. You would tell them where you want it mailed to. You would fill in your reason code, and once again, we're going to choose sick or physically disabled, even if we're not actually sick or physically disabled. Governor Carney has said it's okay. That's what voters are to do to get their absentee ballots in 2020 for COVID, is mark sick or physically disabled on the application form. Then you'll sign it electronically or on paper, attach it to an email, send it in by postal mail. And in this case, in the case of school board, that ballot will be sent to you by postal mail. All right, what's next? Oh, when should you do this? we go back to the elections calendar, if you were to check the elections calendar, it would tell you, that's somewhere on here, it would tell you that the last day to get an absentee ballot, here it is, deadline for Department of Elections to mail, it would tell you the last day to get an absentee ballot by mail is 4 days before the election. Don't wait that long, especially not this year. The Department of Elections is going to be swamped, and it's new for them to handle this volume of absentee ballots. So do it at least 2 weeks ahead, do it a month ahead. Now would be great. Do it right now. If you were to request your presidential primary absentee ballot today, it's ready. Those ballots have been sent out to those who have requested them. A lot of people have already returned their absentee ballot for the presidential primary, so that can be done now, and that vote can be cast now. The school board absentee ballots are not quite ready yet, so if you submit that request form, they're not going to come to you immediately, but there's no reason to wait. You can go ahead and fill out both your absentee requests now, and the ballots will be sent to you when they're ready. All right. So that's it for the process and the timing. Why should you vote? Here's a shameless plug for the video that we just made and posted on our YouTube channel. What does voting matter? Real answers from real people. This is going to be a series of little videos about voting and Vote 411 and why it's important. If you're thinking that you're not going to vote in the presidential primary because the party nominees are already pretty much decided for both major parties, well, that's true. They are. However, in Delaware, there is more than one candidate on the ballot for both the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. So one reason would be to either validate your party's choice or issue kind of a protest vote. Because you do have more than one choice on the Delaware ballot. So you can either say, yep, I'm all for my party's choice, or no, that wasn't my first choice. I'm not real happy with this person. Secondly, as we mentioned at the beginning, we would like to demonstrate to the government of Delaware that when we have an option to vote by mail, that we like it, we use it, and it's workable in Delaware. No major problems developed because people sent in their absentee ballots by mail or submitted them online for that matter. If you're thinking you're not going to vote in the school board election because, hey, you just don't do that. You don't have a kid in the school district, you don't know who the candidates are, you don't know what school boards do. Well, this is a perfect year to change all that. School board elections are important to everybody, not just people who have children in the schools. From a purely practical standpoint, the quality of the school district affects your property values if you're a homeowner. If you're a renter, it affects the property taxes that your landlord pays, and after that, it affects your rent, because if his taxes go up, probably your rent is going to go up. From a philosophical standpoint, the children are our future. If we're not concerned about educating our children and how the quality of our school system is, we're saying we don't care about the future of our country, our nation, our planet. And hopefully we all do care about those things. So we should all vote in the July elections, July 7 presidential primary, July 21st school board election. We should vote in those two elections by absentee if we're at all concerned about social distancing, staying safe in the COVID crisis. You will have an option to vote in person at a polling place, but there will be fewer polling places open. So you have to watch for more information about which polling places will be open. And before you go vote, go visit vote411.org, particularly for the school board election, because that way you can see who's running. You can see there's a little explanation. What do school boards do? You can find out the candidate statements. Why are they running? What did they feel about this issue or that issue? Compare their answers side by side. So it's a great resource. You don't have to say you know nothing about it or you don't know who's running, because you can find out on vote411.org. So that is the end of the video. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. Thank you for watching. Normally I would say, all right, stop the recording. Where is it? Normally I'd say get out there and vote, but this year I'm going to say stay at home and vote. All right, bye everyone.